Another wild movie, to say the least. Now, who do we have in the cast? Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing Wendy, Ryan Merriman playing Kevin, Amanda Crew as Julie, Crystal Lowe as Ashlyn, Kellen Simmons as Ashley, Chris Lemche as Ian, Texas Battle as Lewis, and Alex Johnson as Aaron. Commons Media, 40. Rotten Tomatoes, 43. Internet Movie Database, 58. And Google users, 82 to 91. 6 years after a group of high school students first cheated death, another teen has a premonition that she and her friends will be involved in a horrifying roller coaster accident. When the vision proves true, the student and her fellow survivors must deal with the repercussions of cheating the Grim Reaper. The screenplay was by Glenn Morgan. It was directed by James Wong, distributed by New Line Cinema and New Line Home Entertainment. The budget on this film was $25 million. The box office was almost $119 million. And let's see how Commons Media breaks it down. And I'm sure we're going to get the same question of, is it for kids? And, you know, what is the appeal of horror films and things like that? Why do people like to be scared? Whatnot. Parents need to know that this film isn't for young viewers. It's comprised of essentially nonstop violence against teenagers, usually staged in tense or jump scenes. Blood and gore are shown frequently and copiously. Two girls strip and get naked full on before entering tanning tubes. One boy flirts aggressively using sexual slang. A frightened horse runs through a crowd, accidentally dragging a girl. Blah, blah, blah. 15 parents commented and then 29 kids commented. You know what? I expect that at this point. There's going to be more kids than adults to comment on movies that they're not supposed to be commenting on or even seeing. This is not something that my parents would have allowed me to see as a kid, but I grew up in a more quote-unquote conservative household in that particular sense. When it comes to TV, this type of stuff, it just wasn't within my visual. It wasn't on my radar. Again, when you're a kid, you should just stick to Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney, and PBS. Now, how Commons Media breaks the story? Like the first two films, the third film delivers plenty of yucky death scenes and occasionally startling violence. As per the formula, death stalks a group of teens who somehow eluded in the opening catastrophe, a roller coaster ride that goes terribly wrong. They're saved by Wendy, who sees a vision of the disaster before it happens. Wendy's boyfriend stays on the ride to meet his demise. Wendy discovers Death's plan and tries to warn her fellow survivors. Her photos from that fateful night hold clues about each victim's death. Violent and gross, these deaths mostly take place in front of Wendy and her confidant, Kevin, despite their warnings. Only the first death scene takes place without witnesses. The interchangeable Ashley and Ashlyn, who strip to get inside tanning beds, then essentially cook to death when the units overheat and they're accidentally locked in. Whew. Yeah, that was brutal. Now, is it any good? As death stalks the victims, Final Destination 3 encourages viewers to take pleasure in the mechanisms and the lunacy of the means. Heads are smashed and nail-gunned, bodies are cut in half and crushed. Because the victims behave badly, ignoring Wendy's warning, or being rude or stupid, you're not asked to invest in them emotionally. Yeah, that is true to a degree. That one, yeah. She was trying to tell them. Some of them just didn't listen. But you do invest, if only because of the formula in Wendy, who tries so hard to save her classmates. She asks, can you feel how vicious it was? She asked that, suggesting that death is being sadistic. The film asks you to take her perspective, but because it's the third time with all the gory tricks and tensions, the effects aren't so unexpected. So here's the question. When does pleasure in death effects become routine? Families can talk about the absence of parents in this movie. Only 2 even appear at a funeral. In the background, another shot waiting at school. Why are these kids so alone when they deal with their friends' deaths? They could talk about why horror movies are so popular, especially with teens. Now, me personally, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give this I feel like I would give it about a 7.5 or an 8. I feel it's about that. And Final Destination to me is a different type of it's just a different type of horror film franchise. I mean, we're not talking about somebody wearing a mask and going around slashing people. We're not talking about somebody getting possessed or just things of that nature. People dying in the actions. I said, this is just, people just die in the most bizarre, gruesome ways. I mean, like they just said, cut in half, and the horse was dragging the girl and she almost got killed in the process. I mean, this movie was very wild, to say the least. I think I can probably, after watching this third one, and I still have to watch the fourth and the fifth, I think after watching this one, I can probably add this to my, should I add this to my list of top 10 horror films as far as the franchises? Because, I mean, we already know what the first 4 or 5 are for me. I mean, it's between Jason, Freddy, Halloween, Scream. You know, you can probably add Chucky to the list, and then there's Insidious, The Conjuring. I mean, there's a few of them there. Maybe I can put this one in the top 10 for now. Now, the movies were available to watch on Max, but they just took them off. So I just rented it on YouTube. Apparently, that's rented on YouTube or Amazon or Vudu or Redbox or wherever you could rent it at. Apple TV, iTunes, whatever. So I know all the real horror films probably already saw this, but to those of you who didn't, I suggest giving it a watch. I suggest check out the first 2 before you check out the third. The story in here is not quite as, it's not as much of a serial / linear story as like with Halloween and Scream. But for me personally, I still feel it'd be easier to understand the movie, you know, after having watched the first 2. So, you know, the cast did a great job. And apparently I see that a Final Destination 6 is possibly on the way. So I'll talk about that in another video. I'll cover that one after I watch the 5th movie. So I think it was a pretty good movie. It was wild and it was insane. It was crazy. It was ridiculous, but it was good. So like and subscribe. I got more to come.